Hi, my name is Ed Boon, creator of Mortal Kombat, and you're listening to This Week in Geek with Mike the Birdman Dodd and the rest of the TWIG Crew on This Week in Geek.
Hey guys, what's going on? You are listening to The Prototype, and I'm your host, Mike the Birdman Dodd, and I am still in quarantine. I am still known as the Bubble Boy, but that's okay because I am observing self-isolation, and so should you, practicing social distancing in these most uncertain of times that we currently find ourselves in. It's not quite the dystopian hellscape that Mad Max is. We're not eating each other yet, but we have to keep ourselves entertained. And with that in mind, I welcome my co-host of the show, the man who is in his own private bunker.
Alex, the producer. So if you're a bubble boy, am I bubble fart boy?
Yes, because you would observe that you sulfur smell.
Ew.
Ew. Anyway, so hopefully you are finding ways to spend your time as we endure self-isolation, because I don't even know how many weeks it's been. It's been quite some time. But that means some of us are looking for ways to kill the boredom, to fill the time, to maybe start looking at that back catalog of games we have been playing. And last week on the show, we took a look at the Xbox One console, sort of as a salute and send-off to it, but also games you should be playing during quarantine because, well, right now, if you have the time and if you have the resources, video games are not a bad way to pass the time. And one of the most successful consoles ever made, and arguably the most successful console right now, is the PlayStation 4. This console has had millions upon millions of units sold. It's had critical acclaim right across the board. And initially, I was not thrilled with its launch lineup. Believe me, nobody remembers fucking Knack, and nobody will ever care if they make another one. But that doesn't mean the system has not had some real bangers, especially in the last couple of years. So what we're going to do in this show, much like we did last week, was talk about the games that we recommend you play during quarantine, or games that we consider to be must-owns for the system. Now, these are games we all have some personal experience with. So just because, say, God of War isn't on here, doesn't mean you shouldn't pick it up. I myself didn't enjoy that title, but you know what? Since we could be in isolation and in pandemic lockdown mode for potentially well beyond the summer, maybe I'll try it again. So with that in mind, let us begin the roll call, if you will, of PlayStation 4 titles we think you should be checking out. So I guess first things first, because we don't know how lockdown's going to end, and now seems to be a really good time to jump on with this. PlayStation Plus. PlayStation Plus is the online member service, which allows you to play with other players online, but also gives you 2 free games a month across the PlayStation Network. As of this recording, it is Uncharted 4, which is a fantastic game. You should get this. Definitely a system seller, which I will get to in just a little bit. Fantastically acted, just a good game, but also PlayStation Plus also does provide discounts and access to other discounted things as well. But it's essential if you want to play online. You got to pay if you want to play, if you kind of know where I'm saying. And this will be something I'm pretty sure me and Alex can agree on. This is an absolute system seller.
Absolutely. Like, it was, I got it. I had been off and on with the service on the PS3. And I made the mistake of not having the service when my original PS3 died. So there's actually a bunch of save files that I no longer have access to. So I went back years later, like even like this past year, and tried to download a bunch of games that I wanted to complete on the PS3, which I have left at my mom's. And I'm like, where are my save files? Oh shit, that's right. I never backed them up because I didn't have PlayStation Plus, and I no longer have the USB stick backup I made like in 2008. So it is essential for the cloud saves, even more so than like online.
Absolutely. So that's something you should probably get. And that brings us to our first title that we're going to talk about today, which we reviewed a few weeks ago. And we actually, as of this recording, our roundtable should be airing rather soon, if not or it has already aired. We'll just see how our timing works out. And that is coming from Atlas and Sega, Persona 5 Royal. This game is probably one of the best JRPGs I have ever played. This is probably my top. It's a tie between this and Mass Effect for my favorite RPG of all time now. And that says something.
Wow, that's actually, I love it. It's not my favorite of all time, but it's in my top 5.
The more I play, the more complex the relationships become. I mean, Mass Effect does give you more flexibility in choice, but I think the character depth that I get out of this game says more. I think Persona 5 says more about the human condition and more about basically who you are as people, how you let things define you, how you move forward against what's expected, and sort of your trauma is a part of you. You must accept that. You must accept responsibility. Mass Effect does raise some interesting moral questions as well, such as loyalty, love, leadership, in the face of danger, etc. But Persona 5 touches me on a very fundamental level because it's a game full of broken people. And I think as you go through the story mode, especially in Persona 5 Royal, it's much more fleshed out than vanilla Persona 5 was back in 2017. So with these new additions, the gameplay can easily total over 100 plus hours. I myself, as of this recording, am at hour 130, so I'm rounding near the end of the game.
Now, that being said, if that sounds daunting to some people, I was able to beat it in 74 hours. So it just depends on how you choose to play your time. I was straight to the point, let's get to the end. I experienced all the story points. I still got a platinum trophy, but you're let's look at the trees. Let's go over here. What does this person have to say which isn't central to the story? You're the guy that wants to absorb the whole world.
Exactly. I love lore building. I love knowing about the little things, like in Mass Effect. I want to know, why is that Hanar preaching outside the Citadel? What's going on? In Persona 5, I want to help this person get over the grief that they're feeling. I want to know why this person's doing that. In fact, this playthrough, I'm seeing things I've never seen before. I never got one of my confidants to her max level. I never got Haru up as high as she could go. And now that I've seen her max level and her confidant, I didn't get into a relationship with her, but I really like her more than I originally did the first time around. I only got her to confidant level 3 the first time I played. Now I got her at max, and she's an interesting character, if a little airheaded, but nice. And that's what I like about her. And then little changes to characters like An and Yusuke, I think, are really, really useful too. And I think anybody who wants an interesting game with relatable characters, I think you can't go wrong with this. I've had some people describe this game as a slog. If you play it on easy, which I did, because I don't care for grinding. I'm not in the super strategic combat. It's there if you want it. But if you just want a really engulfing story, then you really can't go wrong.
And I agree. I would talk more, but we've got a whole roundtable discussion on it.
Exactly. So we got to save some of that. So this next title was one of my most pleasant surprises back from 2018, and that is Spider-Man. This came out with Insomniac Games. We saw a trailer at E3 a couple years ago. It looked okay. Different look for the Spider-Man suit. Didn't quite know what to expect. Everybody wants the Spider-Man games to live up to Activision's Spider-Man 2 game. The Spider-Man movie tie-ins for The Amazing Spider-Man were okay at best, but they weren't great. I like The Amazing Spider-Man 2. I don't know why. You fight Carnage, sure. But this Spider-Man game took such a love of the lore, interpreted it into its own gamerverse, where it's now its own Marvel reality, and did something really special with the property. You really felt like Spider-Man. It took the combat and flowing fighting mechanics of the Batman Arkham Knight series and improved upon it. You were literally zipping around on webs. You were going between people's legs. You were dodging and countering punches, throwing web gadgets. You were Spider-Man, and it was hyperkinetic, and it didn't require a high skill ceiling except when you're doing those speedball challenges, which are still annoying to this very day. No, screwball challenges. Fuck her. But they weren't necessary to get the platinum. This is one of the easiest platinums you can get. I got a platinum without even trying. So it's fun, and the storyline's really good. And there's a couple twists and turns I didn't see coming. They kill a legacy character that I was like, holy shit. So yeah, I mean, Spider-Man on PlayStation 4, even with its DLC, The Heist, which sort of ties off some loose ends from the original game. It's pretty good. It does involve Silver Sable and Black Cat, which is kind of cool. And you do see some post-credit stuff with Miles Morales, who essentially is now Spider-Man Jr., like he was in Inside the Spider-Verse, I think it was called. But still,
into the Spider-Verse. Yeah. So it's a fantastic game, and I really can't imagine someone not picking this up and not loving it immediately. The next game on our list is something me and Alex both took a look at. And I think it's worth taking a look at because I think it's a fantastic story with a lot of branching paths. Your decisions matter, and it plays out like a movie. It's more like a visual novel with gameplay elements to it. It's done by the same guy who did Between Two Souls and Heavy Rain, I think. But I'm talking about Detroit Become Human. And that's the story of basically androids gaining self-awareness, choosing their own path in the face of prejudice. And you have this incredibly lifelike AI assistant at the beginning of the game. And at one point you can set her free. Although there's now a patch where you can bring her back if you want, and she's not pissed at you. And it created one of the most powerful video game moments I've ever experienced. And I think I talked about it in my review from 2 years ago, because this came out in May 2018, I think, or 19, one or the other. And there's a moment near the end of the game where the police are about to come kill all these robots. Like, there is about to be blood in the streets, and your guys just start singing. And it comes not as hokey like Disney, but very much free the slaves moment. And it brings up that civil rights kind of injustice vibe. And there's a vignette on YouTube where if you just type in Detroit Become Human, hold on, you'll see the vignette that I'm talking about, sung by the character, I think his name is Luther. And it's really haunting. It's incredibly well done. It is played for the feels, but it gets you there. And if you play the game right, you can get what I would consider to be a fairly happy ending. It's also got wonderful performances by Clancy Brown, so the friggin' Kurgan's in it, and a bunch of other actors you've seen around Hollywood known for a lot of their character work. Because I remember for a while, the guy that played Connor, who plays the android cop, he was a really hot cosplay for a long time because it's so simple to do. But I just thought the game was really, really, really well done. I thought the branching paths were interesting because you can replay each path. And you can see all the different variables. Like if you don't answer something quick enough, maybe something changes. You answer something too aggressively, maybe something changes. So it was infinite, not infinite, but it felt like an infinite tell your own adventure story that no matter what, it felt like no matter what you did, it's like, oh, something bad's going to happen.
Yeah. But it always felt like choice was always there. Like, and it's rare that a game gets to me like that. Like I do remember, I fully admit it, I cried when I had that emotional moment in this game. And then I cried at the very end. I'm not going to spoil what happened to one of my characters, but I was like, oh no, you're all alone. What are you going to do? And it's so sad. And I could have avoided that. I found out later, but I hate using this term, but I find myself using it more and more often these days. My headcanon playthrough is of Detroit Become Human. That's how that character's story ends. I haven't replayed it since, but I think it's something everybody should experience. And it's a wonderful story. It is a little dark at times. Maybe a little too dark for right now, but I do think there is value in finding hope within tragedy, because at the end of the day, there's stories about potentially good people and good people finding each other. Not everybody's a bad guy. So if you're willing to sit through a game that has some controversy surrounding it, then I absolutely 100% recommend Detroit Become Human.
Same here.
This next title is available across multi-platform. I got it on the PlayStation 4 for my birthday, and that's Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. This was developed by Respawn Entertainment, the same guys who did the Titanfall franchise. And when I first heard about they were developing a Star Wars game under EA, I was like, well, this will either be really good or really stupid. Because up until that point, the only EA Star Wars game we had was Star Wars Battlefront 1. A multiplayer Star Wars Battlefront game with no single-player campaign to speak of, and multiplayer servers that were miraculously really, really empty. Nobody bought the game, really. I don't think it sold terribly well. Cool PS4 with it, though. But anyway, so Jedi Fallen Order tells the story of... I can't remember the character's name, but he plays the Joker on Gotham. And he plays a Jedi Padawan who survived Order 66, and he's in hiding. Eventually, the Empire catches up to him, and they send an Inquisitor after him. An Inquisitor is somebody who works for Emperor Palpatine or Darth Vader, whose job is to either bring you to the dark side or kill you. Odds are you don't have a choice. So this character is running from them. And what you get is a Dark Souls-like experience, but in Star Wars, but it doesn't feel unfair. The game has adjustable difficulty levels for blocking and parrying and timing and everything, but there's also some puzzles and platforming to it. It never feels unfair. Everything can be figured out, but there is no fast travel. So you got to rely on like this Metroidvania-like map. I'm about halfway through it right now. I'm on Kashyyyk. I've cleared part of Dathomir so I could get the double-bladed lightsaber super early so I can just mess people up Darth Maul style. And I'm having a really fun time with it. There's also a lot of really neat hidden Star Wars references. For example, they talk about Tarful, who's a Wookiee chieftain. Tarful's a name from Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith. Tarful also had his own action figure as part of the Revenge of the Sith toy line. So that's kind of neat. They would hide little things like that in there. Like, I'm a big Star Wars nerd. Since I got the collector's edition, there's like a documentary behind the scenes where they talk about this. It's a damn fine Star Wars game, especially considering EA said it's sold well above expectations, and they wanted something using the Star Wars IP, because the next game before this was Star Wars Battlefront 2, which we all know had the microtransaction kerfuffle till they took it out. Now Battlefront 2 is another honorable mention because you can get that game ridiculously cheap with a lot of added content into it. The campaign mode is short. You'll beat it in under like 8 hours, but the multiplayer mode has been fantastically overhauled. There's a bunch of new characters. You can play as Republic Commandos, which are my favorite stormtroopers ever. You can play as all different types of heroes like Obi-Wan Kenobi, Grievous. It's fun. So that's an honorable mention. The next one that I want to talk about, which I don't think Alex has played. He's played the sequel to this, but not this one. Resident Evil 2 Remake. This came out.
It looks scary to me.
It is. This is the game. The Resident Evil series has obviously been known for jump scares, but also zombies and ridiculousness. And the last few entries have been kind of, We had Resident Evil 6, which the less we say, the better. Resident Evil 7, which was a return to form, but in first person. It was different. I've only played that for a couple of minutes. I haven't played much more beyond like the first section. But Resident Evil 2 Remake was a kind of a surprise announcement, and then they dropped it in January of last year, and it was one of my top games of last year. So Resident Evil 2 Remake takes the original that came out in 1998 and ups it to 11. This is the remake people have wanted for years, ever since we had the Resident Evil 1 and 0 ones back in the early 2000s. This has been in development for like 18 years or something. So seeing Leon and Claire come to life again with modern graphics, with modern gameplay sensibilities, a game where a headshot is not necessarily going to put down a zombie, where they can survive a shot to the head because their brain isn't necessarily destroyed. And where they introduce again and made sinister and more evil is Mr. X. In the original Resident Evil, he could appear in certain areas, but you could hide. Here, he can follow you into different rooms and fuck your shit up. And it's a great update to the game, and it keeps it in 1998. So the game story makes sense. They keep with the Resident Evil timeline we all know and love, while changing a few details here and there. It's one of the best survival horror games I've ever played. The puzzles are all very familiar yet different. It's good, scary, fun. Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, not so much. Maybe wait till that game drops to $20 or $30. And that sucks to say because it's built upon the same engine. But Resident Evil 2 is definitely worth it. And I think it's for sale across every platform right now for like $30 with all the DLC, which is totally worth it. The next game that I want to talk about, there isn't really much to say about it because it's been out since 2014. It was available on the PS3 and the Xbox 360. The community is still alive today. It's still in the top price or the top sales charts every week. Grand Theft Auto 5. One of the best storylines in the Grand Theft Auto series. Memorable characters. You get a fantastically broad multiplayer suite. There are microtransactions if you want, but they are not necessary. There are role-playing areas. Like, there are people who will role-play with you as opposed to just Rudy-tooty point and shooty. But if you want to do ridiculous stunts in the sky with motorcycles, you can do that. You can just wander around the map and explore. You can go to virtual casinos.
Quote of the show, Rudy-tooty pointy shooty.
I mean, it's such a fantastically well-made game, and the fact that it jumped to the next generation of consoles and was made better really stands the testament of Rockstar's strength as a developer. I mean, an honorable mention should obviously go to Red Dead Redemption 2. However, that being said, I have not played it. I have owned it since launch. It sits on my shelf, but hey, guess what? I guess I've got time now. But Grand Theft Auto 5, it's on sale as of this recording for about $20. It'll probably be on sale again. If not, you can find a brand new retail copy for less than $30. It's worth that for sure. This one is one I think was very hidden when it first came out. It had a lot of good hype for it, but it just didn't deliver as much as it should, but at least it got a sequel, which is delayed until who knows when. But I'm talking about Watch Dogs 2. Watch Dogs 2 was a game brimming with personality. They took the rather bland main character of Aiden Pierce and gave the character a slick new update, though I can't remember his name off the top of my head. But I just remember the missions being a lot more engaging. They were a lot more fun. The puzzles were neat. You were in a modern day San Francisco. You could climb up the top of the Golden Gate Bridge and tag things, I think. You could fly around drones. You could take remote control cars. You could hack into things like you could in the original Watch Dogs, but you could do a lot more stupid shit. It's like Grand Theft Auto, but with hacking. But this one had a much better soundtrack. It knew its identity. And I think Watch Dogs 2, a lot of people slept on, and they really shouldn't have. It had just a lot of personality to it, and I really fell in love with it. Plus, at one point, you fight Ed 209 from like RoboCop, and it's a lot of fun.
I wonder. Do you think these are on? I might have it on PSN. I might have to go and actually play them before the new game comes out.
I really recommend it because
really
Watch Dogs is so much fun.
I think the first one's like $5.
It's worth it. I mean, if you can get the first game with the DLC for $5, I liked it. I thought it was fun. Especially some of the characters were kind of generic, but they were fun too. Like I liked Aiden Pierce. I liked Jordy. I think his name was T-Bone or T-Dog. He was the old man hacker. He was kind of cool. It's just, and I thought its gunplay was actually pretty good. Plus, using the hacking mechanic to cause car crashes or blow up the street was fun because you get a hacking ability where you can blow steam pipes. And watching a 40 car pileup behind you is really, really satisfying. So yeah, my next pick, this will scare you, Alex, but I think you should play it because it's one of those choose your own adventure games, and it was a very early PlayStation 4 title as well, but it's worth owning. And it's called Until Dawn. And Until Dawn follows a series of college students, I guess, and they go up to this friend's cabin for a weekend getaway. And I think they want to remember one of their friends who's passed away. And over the course of the game, bad shit starts happening. And there's eventually a supernatural element to it too. But decisions you make, even little ones, can come back to haunt you. Will this character live? Will they fall into a wood chipper? Will they get attacked by this creature? Will they befriend this person? Will this person react coldly to you? Are you a slut? Stuff like that. It's pretty cool. It's not as robust as Detroit Become Human, but it's a lot more atmospheric. I thought it was really, really, really well done. It stars the guy who was Mr. Robot and Freddie Mercury, Remy Malek. He's in it.
Also known as the man with the deadpan dead eyes.
He reminds me of a Chihuahua in a weird way.
Oh, Yokiro Doggo Bell. Could you picture his face on that dog? Yeah, I could.
I'm pretty sure I've seen that photoshopped. But
yeah, like these are titles that are choose your own adventure ones. I like the idea of it. I'd have to play it with people in the room. I'd be too scared on my own.
Some people do that, actually. I've heard of people throwing parties where they'll play Until Dawn and the room makes the decision together.
Yeah, that would be fun. I could handle that. And I mean, now that I'm talking, something came to mind. It is a multi-platform game similar to Watch Dogs, but I love the new Deus Ex titles that came out this generation. Like you had Deus Ex Human Revolution, which was, I believe, was that multi-platform? Was that multi-generation? PS3 and PS4? I think so.
Yes.
But the PS4 version was the better. And then Deus Ex Mankind Divided. That's what got me into the cyberpunk style of gameplay. It was basically, it's the Mass Effect or the Skyrim of the cyberpunk world is probably the best way to describe what that gameplay is. You get to play as a augmented human at a time when that is a very, I guess, contentious thing to be. And there's conspiracies to stop global pandemic hackers that are going to try to basically create a virus that's going to mess up everybody's implants. You hack into computers. And it's the first game I played where you don't have to fight anybody. Like, I had played a bit of Metal Gear before, but Metal Gear was never my style. But this was a game where, yeah, you can get combat things, skills, you can take down people, you can do all this. But like, if you choose to, you could wait things out, find a pattern of when they're walking, sneak by them. And after a patch came out for the first game, and it's also in the second game, you don't have to fight bosses. There are ways to get around it. Like, there'll be a boss where it's like, oh God, I just, I've learned how to do all these hacking skills and I don't do anything but go in and run and gun. No, you don't have to run and gun. You can like find, oh, there's a ventilation system. You can gas the person, knock them out non-lethally, and bypass the boss entirely, which I thought was really neat. So that's just sort of an honorable mention because it is multi-platform, but I played it on the PlayStation. As far as other titles, Final Fantasy 15's on everything. It's fun. It's probably a good thing to play now that the Royal Edition's out. It's like $30 or $40, and you get like 150 hours of gameplay with all the expansions. So there's not much that need to be said about the Final Fantasy series. By now, if you like it or you don't. But it is sort of, other than Final Fantasy VII Remake, which just came out, it's the magnum opus of JRPGs on the console. As far as anything else that has come out, a lot of things are now going multi-platform. They're going PS4 and Switch. So in some cases, some of the RPGs that I would like to talk about, I'll probably end up talking about when we do a Switch episode, because they seem to play better. Like, cartoony looking games play better on the Switch in my mind.
Okay.
But as far as single like PS4 experiences, Infamous Second Son. Did you talk about that?
No, I was actually hoping you would bring that up.
Okay. Because I was like, I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, you've been talking about games. I'm like, did he mention it? Did he mention it in passing? No. Infamous Second Son. Now, the Infamous series, I never played before this game. And when playing it, it's basically it's the epitome of the pseudo action adventure game that has a little bit of RPG elements because there's leveling up your skills sort of thing. The closest game series to it in style is probably the Saints Row series, Saints Row 3 and 4. But Infamous was like the most beautiful game I had ever played in 2014 or whatever it was when it came out, right? Mm-hmm. The honorable mention can go to The Order, which is like a 4-hour game, but it's only it's only get it if it's free. But Infamous Second Son is regularly between $10 and $20, and it's by far one of the best buys you're going to get on the system. Pair that up with Killzone Shadowfall, which was that a launch title? I think so.
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and it's funny. I've only played about half of that game, but I love it, and I just never get around to beating it. But Killzone Shadowfall was like, this is what next-gen shooters can be that are exclusive, and it still holds up graphically for a game that's 7 years old now.
And it's only $5 right now on PSN. I actually may buy that after the show.
Yeah, absolutely. It's totally worth it. And then I would say, as far as other RPGs, I've been singing the praises of the Trails of Cold Steel series for a while now. They came out, the first two games came out on the PS3 and the Vita, but they had a full remaster on with a better engine on the PS4 with modes like fast forward, so you can you don't have to run it. Like, if you're going to go grind and fight, you can just turn it on fast forward motion and get into battle and beat things in 2 seconds once you get into your flow. It is old school JRPG with the best world building I've ever experienced in a game series ever. Bar none. Nothing beats it. Not even Mass Effect.
Oh, wow. That's quite the ringing endorsement.
Execution wise, it is JRPG, so there's some fan service involved. It's like, what if Persona mixed with Xenogears? That's the best way to describe it. So, there's mecha, there's steampunk, there's relationship building. There isn't necessarily the romance aspect, but get everybody's bond levels to the maximum, and you experience more scenes with them, and then interactions in the world become different. So, similar play style to that. There's mini games you can do, like fishing, cooking, a whole bunch of other junk, and if you want to play them, each game flows into the next. So unlike Persona and Final Fantasy, where each game is a separate story, we've got 3 games so far. The 4th is coming in the fall. So think about this. There is still games being released in this series on this current generation. And as a matter of fact, I believe the first and second game in the series were pretty much the 2 last games released on PS3, other than Persona 5 came out Yeah, it was Persona 5 that came out. I think it was the last game on the system. So Atlas and the Xseed NS America, like RPGs, they still come out well into the end of a system's life cycle, and you'll be able to enjoy it. Like, let's say you can't afford a PS5 right away. There's going to be a few games from these companies still coming out for 6 months to a year after. That'll either be cross-buy or cross-play or something in that format. If you're looking for expansive, great gameplay, world-building stuff, the Trails of Cold Steel series is fantastic. As far as any other RPGs in the system, the Ni no Kuni series. The first game, all the cutscenes and animation were done by Studio Ghibli, basically Disney Japan. The second game used a different studio, but some of the same artists, and it was fantastic as well. Two of the most fun JRPGs for people that aren't JRPG fans. Somebody like yourself could get really into it. The first game has a little bit of like a Pokemon aspect where you can capture enemies and use them. The second game is a little different, but to give you a bit of background on the first game, you play as a boy in, I would believe to be, I think it's World War II era, because there's motor cars, but the cars look like cars in the 20s. So it's like, I think it takes place in the 30s. And you're taken to this village, or you live in this village with your mom, and while you're there, you went through some happenstance, you end up a la Alice in Wonderland, able to be transported to a fantasy world, or like Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe type thing. And things that happen in that world are your souls are entwined with what happens in the real world. So sometimes you'll have to go back to the real world, into your town, and do something to have it affect that fantasy world. So, for instance, there's a giant cat who's the king of the town, but he's gotten lazy or whatever. You go into the real world and you find the cat's just a fat cat that his soul is entwined to, that works or lives in the corner store. And it's just like, you got to get him a toy to play with or something. And that would allow him to wake up the spirit in the other world. Kind of neat stuff going back and forth. And the whole game it's heavily implied, but not explicitly said, that the little boy that you're playing as, his mother is dying of cancer. And that it's almost like this fantasy world was there to help him cope. But the kid doesn't know that this is happening. So this isn't like his imagination taking over. This is an actual world that's manifest, like it's a real thing. And it just so happens that this is how he gets to move through the process. And that's not spoiling anything, because that's just the setup of the first like 10 minutes of the game.
Sounds very Persona-ish in a weird way, and yeah, I kind of dig that. But
very Disney-esque in the style, and everybody speaks with British accents, and it's funny. As far as the second game is concerned, you play as the president of basically America, USA. As you're driving in a car, you're in a limousine, and you're going to meet at the UN, or what the equivalent of the UN is. And this is still connected. This is the same sort of world thing, but this is like modern day. And you're just driving around, and then you look outside, and you're like, you're going to a meeting to stop some tensions that were going on with a foreign power. And basically your guy, the main character, looks outside the car, and he goes, "Oh God," right as a nuke goes off. Like, no kidding. Like literally, you can see it, and you can see like the flashbang as it's going in the mushroom cloud as it's going towards him, and then he wakes. Like, you see a flash of light, and he disappears out of the car, and then now he's in the fantasy world from the first game. And what ends up happening is you help the prince of this land that you're in escape from a coup d'etat that killed his father, and this evil rat king wants to take over the kingdom and all this. So you leave with him, and you basically go around the world helping people and slowly building up your army, and you build your own new kingdom. And when you recruit somebody, let's say you do a mission for somebody and you get like a baker, you can then spend points you get in the game to do like a Sim City style thing where you build the actual kingdom. You place where you want the stores and what you want to expand, and then you get to slowly see your kingdom get bigger and bigger and bigger. Very similar to like Suikoden.
That's a series name I haven't heard in years.
Yeah, but it's very similar to that. So, and that came out only a couple of years ago. Both of these titles, Ni no Kuni, was available originally on the PS3. It's don't bother on the PS3. It's like a 40 gig download, and the PS3 servers are horrendously slow. Like I have gigabit internet, and it can take like 15 hours to download the game, and then it takes like 3 hours to install because of how slow the PS3 is. But the PS4 version came out in the fall. I got a review copy of it, and it is a fully remastered one in 4K with all the DLC included, and it's $40.
It's a damn good deal.
Yeah, it's also available on the Switch. The Switch version is not the remastered version in 4K. It's literally a port of the PS3. So if you can get it for the PS4, that's the one to get. But if you don't have it, it's worth checking out on the Switch as well. The second game is worth retails right now for $26 or so, and it's totally worth it too. And you can get, I think they're on sale. You can get like the DLC package. You can get all the expansions for them for like $25 or so. For under $100, you can get both games, and they'll give you between the two of them about 100 to 150 hours of gameplay. Now those two are just shining examples. There's other games that have come out. The Tales series has been out. Those are great if you're into that kind of JRPGs. Sure, there's some pretty good flagship titles there. But as far as, we're talking for the RPG fan, or for the people that aren't already RPG fans, the Ni no Kuni series is probably a good entry point, because they're like Persona in that they can appeal to people that aren't RPG fans. The other titles I would suggest are, there's Judgment, which is part of the Yakuza series, sort of, but not, and you're basically playing a detective in like Tokyo, and there's multiple aspects of the way you play. It's basically, what's the best way to put it? It's like the Japanese version of, it takes elements of Quantum Break, not the time travel-y sort of thing or time manipulation thing, but it's the investigation portion. You are investigating crimes, then it turns into an action game, like where you beat people up, and then there's other parts of the game that are, it's like taking bits and pieces out of every style of game you could imagine and putting it into this one weird Japanese detective game. Pretty fun stuff. And I believe that's PS4 exclusive. The other one that was really good, and I believe it might be PS4 exclusive. If not, I still think it's worth playing on PS4 specifically, is the Fist of the North Star Lost Paradise. Same team that made Judgment made that. Most ridiculous, over-the-top action game ever. Some RPG elements, but just a fun overall story. It never gets old punching people and making their heads explode.
Oh, it's a little extreme.
But it doesn't get old. And then other than that, like you said, the Persona series, there's so many good RPGs on the system as well. It's, but a good starting point would be the Ni no Kuni games. If you can afford them, $100, you can get both of them. Great deal. And then also, if you're a sports fan, and you like baseball, MLB The Show, the only real baseball game in town. There's RBI, there's other ones out there, but they're not the same. And until I think a year or two from now, the MLB license is still going to be exclusive to PlayStation. So if you like baseball, there's that. As far as other games,
it also may be the only baseball you'll see this year.
Yeah, and there are lots of other visual novel style games that are available on PS4. That seems to be, like, if you're looking for weird, quirky Japanese things, look no further than PS4. And they regularly go on sale from anywhere from like $5 to $10.
See, that's something I've always been curious, is to try out more visual novels. So maybe I'll have to get your recommendations.
They're basically dating simulators in some cases, and in some cases they're really good sci-fi or supernatural stories.
So I guess as we begin to round things out, I'm going to give you guys a couple more quick recommendations. I think a lot of these titles should just speak for themselves. Excuse me. I'd like to recommend the Uncharted collection along with Uncharted 4. What can I say about Nathan Drake that hasn't been said since the PlayStation 3 days? Naughty Dog did a fantastic job with this series. It's just fucking fantastic. I mean, it's like Indiana Jones, but cooler. Plus, Tom Holland is supposed to play him in a movie at some point. I don't know when, but it's supposed to happen. Plus, as of this recording, it's still the PSN game for free. So download it while you can. Another game I really recommend from 2018 was Assassin's Creed Odyssey. This takes the basis from Assassin's Creed Origins and improves upon it. Takes you to ancient Greece with you can play as Alexis or Alexios. We actually interviewed the voice actor for Alexios at Kitchener at Tri-City SuperCon last year, I think. Or you went to his panel or something.
Yeah, I went to his panel. They weren't doing a ton of actual interviews, but
we had audio from it.
Audio, and then I got to have a bit of a talk privately as well that I covered on the show.
So if you want to go check that out, you can go back through our archives. But no, seriously, Assassin's Creed Odyssey was fantastic. Ubisoft is really good at supporting their games post-launch. There's the Fall of Atlantis DLC. There's just tons of community events you can do. There are some DLC microtransactions in it, but they are not necessary to beat the game. But it's a great story overall, and I like how it fits into the Assassin's Creed universe. Ever since they kind of abandoned the whole Desmond thing after Assassin's Creed with Assassin's Creed Black Flag, it was sort of here's a story and here's some Abstergo interest, but it's not essential to the story. It's all stuff in the past that really, really matters. So I recommend that game wholeheartedly. Finally, this I think is a masterpiece, is a must own for the system. And you can find this game regularly under $10. If not, I think it's on sale again right now for under $20. And that's The Last of Us Remastered, with The Last of Us 2 getting delayed till who knows when. If you want to have the adventures of Joel and Ellie across a post-apocalyptic landscape, not unlike what we're going through right now, this is a topical game. Don't know if it's the greatest game. I'm not going to lie, it gets grim at times, and it's not a game you should play for laughs. It's a very emotional game, but at the end of the game, if it doesn't touch your heart in some ways, then I think maybe you're a little dead inside. But it can be a punishing game too, but it's very rewarding. I like to go through it with as few shots fired as possible. I get really into the role-playing aspect, and if I can choke out a bad guy, I will, or if I could stab a bad guy to death without anybody hearing me, I'll do that rather than go in guns blazing. Which means by the end of the game, I have a shit ton of ammo, but it's more fun to be Solid Snake as opposed to Rambo. And those are my recommendations for the PlayStation 4. Is there any? I
have one more, because in our flurry of what we were talking about, did we mention Horizon Zero Dawn?
No, I haven't played that game, but
I presume
you have.
I played about an hour, and I was like, this is really good. I got to get back to that. And then I didn't. So I might have to, but everybody I know loves it.
Yeah, I bought it when it was on sale last year for $20. You got the digital edition for like everything, and it got everything for under 20. It's in the PlayStation Greatest Hits right now, so it's always going to be $20. And with that in mind, that's another game you should absolutely pick up. Again, everybody I've talked to as well has loved Horizon Zero Dawn. It's basically it's Becky Lynch from WWE versus robot dinosaurs. And I'm okay with that.
To me, it looks like Brave, the Pixar movie, if they were ancient Mecca.
Yeah, like it's something else. You'll notice we didn't mention God of War. I played that game. I couldn't get into it from an accessibility point of view. But that doesn't mean that it's a bad game. I think it's worth checking out.
I got frustrated about 3 hours in, when the first puzzle started where you had to throw your axe, run up, grab your axe, run to another spot, throw it before you get crushed in a cave. And I went, fuck you. This is not the kind of game I like to play. This is supposed to be a hack and slash game. Why are you filling this with like instant kill puzzles?
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of puzzles in games either. In fact, I will fully admit this. When I was playing Persona 5 Royal, I had to have Blair help me with a couple of the puzzles just because my brain doesn't work like that.
Because your brains are scrambled.
It really is. It was some in the depths of mementos, and
Okay. No,
there
you know
was
what? You wait. You just wait if you do some of the post-game content.
oh boy. So anyway, that's going to be our show on the PlayStation 4. So thank you for your many years of service as we begin to wind down this console generation with the PlayStation 5 potentially just around the corner. Though with Corona, we don't know whether we're actually going to get that this year. I would honestly be very surprised at this point. But we'll have to wait and see. So that's sort of what we've done for this edition of the Prototype. Next time on the Prototype, we're going to talk about the Nintendo Switches, which is the console I have the least amount of experience with, though Alex has a large amount of experience. So he'll primarily be leading this one, but I'm definitely willing to listen. But I do have some suggestions of my own. As always, we do thank you for listening to us here at This Week in Geek. If you want to interact with the show, feedback at thisweekingeek.net. We do welcome your interactions. Also, Twitter at This Week in Geek, though Alex is managing the social media. If you do need a message through to me directly, I will always respond to you. I'm just kind of taking it easy on the social medias, mostly posting stupid things and cat videos. So until next time for the Prototype, we have been
Alex, the producer.
I've been Mike the Birdman Dodd saying live free or die hard. And as my friend Jackie Bam Bam might say, be cool, be kind, be careful, observe social distancing, and practice those video games because, hey, we're going to be inside for a while. We'll catch you guys next time right here on ThisWeekInGeek.net. Boom.